into the heart of enemy lines. Surely humankind is ungrateful to their Lord, and they certainly attest to this. And they are truly extreme in their love of worldly gains. Do they not know when the contents of graves will be spilled out, and the secrets of the hearts will be laid bare? Surely their Lord is all aware of them on that day.
Surah Al-Adiyah, the 100th chapter of the Quran, delivers a powerful message about human ingratitude, the fleeting nature of worldly wealth, and the certainty of the Day of Judgment. It reminds believers that all actions will be held accountable by Allah, who is all-knowing. The surah highlights how people often become ungrateful, especially when blessed with wealth, and urges them to show gratitude and recognize Allah as the source of all blessings.
It warns against materialism, encouraging believers to prioritize spiritual values and obedience to Allah over worldly gains. The surah also emphasizes the importance of justice, honesty, and integrity in daily life. Through the vivid imagery of swift, obedient war horses, it symbolizes the urgency of the Day of Judgment and the loyalty believers should have towards their Creator. Reciting Surah Al-Adiyah serves a reminder for self-reflection and spiritual purification. Thank you.
Salawat.
Jazakallah, girls. Now if I could ask Sister Nazneen for a marcia.
बर शहंशाह कायनात इमाम ज़माना बावाज़ बुलंद सलवात हुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद वअज्जिल फरजहुम। ये करबला है, ये करबला है, यहाँ संभल कर कदम उठाना। ये करबला है, ये है, ये करबला, ये करबला है, यहाँ संभल कर कदम उठाना। ये करबला है, यहाँ पे हुर भी था हुरमला। किताबे हस्ती को पढ़ के देखो, सदाए हल मिन तो आ रहे हैं, तुम इस तरह जो या उस तरफ हो, तुम्हें अमल से है अब बताना, ये करबला है, ये करबला है, यहाँ संभल कर सब कदम उठाना, है भला है। कहीं पे कासिम हुए हैं टुकड़े, कहीं पे जी से गिरे हैं मौला, कहीं सकीना सुमोन से लिपटी, कहीं पे असगर ने तीर खाया, अरे यहीं गरीबी का है थी का जाना, ये करबला है, ये करबला है,
Join us for 10 nights of
ये
healing from the false
करबला
choice
है,
between being
ये
spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our
Tonight's the Baruch is sponsored by Fatma Patel. If I could ask everybody to please recite Surah Fatiha. Please consider joining the oil WhatsApp group. It's been live for some time now. It is definitely a lot more easier to use versus email. So please, if you can scan and join the WhatsApp group, you'll stay connected with all our events, all our communications ongoing. Tomorrow, after the lecture, actually after Q&A, Sheikh Mohamed Yasin Devji will be hosting a youth fireside chat from 9:45 until 10:30. It is strictly for ages 13 to 25, so the adults, well, beyond 25, are not welcome here. So you'll be waiting outside until the function is complete. So it is primarily just for ages 13 to 25. It allows for conversation in a safe and non-judgmental setting. There is no registration required for this, but we look forward to as many youth as possible joining us. On Ashura Day, which will be July 6th, on Sunday next week, the program is between 10 and 2 p.m. Amal will be led by Brother Hussein Darcy. It does include Niaz. So we would ask that you please register ahead so we can keep an eye on the numbers. We don't want any wasted food. I know yesterday Brother Murtaza made a passionate plea just around people that are registering for these kinds of sessions and not showing up. It does cost oil quite a bit of money per head to have things ready. If you do register, please show up. If you're unable to, please let us know a few days before so that we can make adjustments. There's a desk outside. There's one lady, Sister Roxana Jessa, that's handling communications on behalf of a charity that that we're happy to provide space for. The information is here on the screen. If anyone is interested in finding out more about it, please, her table is outside next to our registration desk. If I could ask everybody to do a shifa for these individuals, Brother Mirza Alam, Dr. Abdulaziz Sachedina, and Sister Zarina Hirani, and all those that need our prayers. Please, Bismillah. Amma yujibo mustaraizada yakshifasu. Amma yujibo mustaraizada yakshifasu. Amma yujibo mustaraizada yakshifasu. So just before we get started with the lecture, I'm going to ask Sister Alize Sharif to come up and do a youth presentation on Bibi Sakina. Allahumma salli ala.
Salam everyone, my name is Alize. As I look around the room today, I see girls, boys, young adults, and some older men and women. The beauty of Karbala is that each and every one can relate to the story, identifying with one of the personalities present in Karbala over 1,400 years ago. I, being 9 years old today, chose to talk about Bibi Sakina. Bibi Sakina was 5 or 6 years old during Karbala. Have you ever wondered how Bibi Sakina felt when almost her whole family died in the worst way possible in front of her eyes? Since I was young, I always thought Bibi Sakina was a superhero and that she had superpowers. But now I know that her superpower was her belief in Allah, and that power allowed her to stand strong despite the injustice and the suffering she faced. We can learn a lot from Bibi Sakina, like her strength and kindness, but the thing we need to learn most about her is how much she cared for everyone and her belief for Allah. Kids today don't know much about her, but they do know that she believed in Allah, and if they did too, they could do anything. Adults don't let kids have a lot of say in things, but if kids were in charge or could just have a say in things, the world would be a lot better and safer. We can see from Bibi Sakina, she stood up from the worst bullies and cared for her aunt and her whole family. As children today, if we also have a strong faith in Allah and love, we also, like Bibi Sakina, we too can stand up to bullies and against injustice like in Gaza or anywhere in our own lives when we see any type of oppression. Despite having so little, Bibi Sakina shared whatever she had with her family. As children today, we too can share even if we have so little and help people in difficult times, like when a loved one dies or when we see a friend have less than us. There's so much lessons we can learn from Karbala, and there's so much injustice in the world today. The people suffering today have drawn inspiration from the difficulties faced in Karbala and have stood firm against injustice and not surrendered. Bibi Sakina sacrificed her family and her father for her love for Allah and the future of Islam, and it's our duty to make sure that we carry that love forward until the end of time. Thank you for listening to my speech. Have a good night.
That was absolutely beautiful. Please, a loud salawat. Sheikh, that's going to be hard to follow. It is now my privilege to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Sheikh Mohamed Yasin Devji. Raised in Toronto, Sheikh Mohamed Yasin migrated to the holy city of Qom in 2006 to pursue Islamic studies in the Hawza. In 2010, he took a 2-year leave to study the Arabic language in the Sayyida Zainab district of Damascus. In 2012, he returned to Qom to continue his seminary studies, where he obtained a BA in Islamic philosophy and mysticism. He continued studying Islamic philosophy, mysticism, jurisprudence, and the principles of jurisprudence to the advanced level. Please recite a loud salawat to welcome Sheikh to the stage.
Everyone in the back, can you hear me? Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين لا سيما خاتمهم وأفضلهم محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى أهل بيت الطهارة لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين الحجة ابن الحسن أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر أحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل السافلين آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite a salawat. My elders, dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In keeping with the structure and the pattern of our nights, tonight I wish to honor and I wish to dedicate my lecture to the mental health professionals in the community. Just by a show of hands, it's an invitation, you don't have to, but just by a show of hands, how many mental health professionals do we have in the audience tonight? So to my fellow mental health professionals in the community, be it therapists, counselors, psychologists, social workers, all those who dedicate their lives to heal the minds and souls of the people in our society, I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. As a registered psychotherapist, I don't just observe your triumphs and struggles from the outside, but I'm there with you. To carry this sacred responsibility is difficult. Emotional effort can be overwhelming at times. But there's something that we don't necessarily always talk about in the mental health profession, which you may not know. And that is that when you seek mental health, assistance, we mental health professionals are not perfect. We are not completely well put together human beings all the time. No, we're no different than our clients. In fact, what we're doing is we're just holding up a mirror to our clients. The work that we do, it comes at a cost. But because it is a labor of love, and because we believe in humanity, this is why we continue doing what we do. We have our own issues, and I can speak for myself as a mental health professional and a registered psychotherapist. Within my training and even till today, I have to attend mandated personal therapy. Now, what's interesting about that is that, I'll share with you a story. My first therapy session, I walked into my therapist's office, and my therapist was very excited. You're a trainee, we're looking forward to, working together, this, that. I had to slow my therapist down. I said, listen, I said, given everything I've been through in life and everything that I've seen in life, I should have been here a long time ago. But I'm here now, so let's just focus on me and we'll worry about the training stuff after. It comes across as very cliche, but every therapist will tell you, and I will repeat it, everybody needs therapy. Myself, after having over 100 hours of attended personal therapy in my life, I cannot tell you the benefits that I've experienced, the awareness that has grown inside of me, the things that I have discovered. And it's not that it's something that's going to change myself overnight. No, it took a long time to get to where I got to. But even that, just the awareness alone of myself is something that I'm grateful for to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of course my therapist. So to every mental health professional, and to all of you, as professionals, we also carry our own wounds. I don't know if you guys remember seeing in the movies or TV shows, when people go for the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, right? They walk inside, they sit down, they state their name, and then everybody says, hi, so-and-so. Well, in front of you all, my name is Mohamed Yasin, and I am a wounded healer. And it is nice to meet each and every one of you. Please recite a salawat. I had an interesting conversation with my brother on the way over here. Tonight's message, I really would, it is my heart's desire that this message is for the young people. But then he pointed out something to me. He's like, when growing up, anytime a speaker got up and said, this is for the young people, what was your reaction? I'm like, yeah, you know what? Every time someone got up and said, I want to talk to the young people, or this is for the young people, it was always followed by a scolding or something condescending. So yeah, so I realized in the comment, like, Riz, we've become cliches, right? But sincerely, from my heart, to my youngsters, I acknowledge 1,000% that I have no idea what it's like to be a young person in the year 2025. I don't, because I'm not. But what I can tell you, I can promise you two things. Number one, I'm not going to scold you. I'm definitely not going to condescend you. Don't worry about that. But what I can tell you is that I was also young once upon a time in Toronto and growing up. And there are certain things that I wish I had while I was growing up. Because if I had them, then perhaps things might have been different. Now, of course, there's something to be said about the fact that everything that happened in my journey got me to this point. But nevertheless, there are still things and a lot of pain and suffering. Perhaps I could have saved myself had I known what I would like to share with you tonight. Tonight's topic is the virtue of tawakkul, which is that trust and reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. an invitation again. Would anybody like to share with me what they believe tawakkul is and how they apply it in their life? Anyone? There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. I'm just curious. Okay, no problem. Tawakkul is a very interesting concept. And again, going back to what I said yesterday and going back to what I said the night before, I want to emphasize this point. These virtues that we are covering are lecture series on themselves. What we're doing here is simply introducing them and introducing them from a perspective. I would encourage you, because these virtues, going back to our original lecture and laying it from the start, the concept of the fitrah becomes the divine blessing and container inside all of us, which holds the 7 virtues that Allah talks about in the Quran, the 7 people that He loves. It's innately part of us. It's not separate from us. And so like going for therapy, you can give yourself spiritual therapy. You don't have to go to a therapist for this one, but you can give yourself spiritual therapy by beginning to discover these virtues inside of yourselves and reading about them more and see, because they are a part of you. And the more you become aware of them, the more enriched and fulfilled one's life can become. Please recite a salawat. So the Quranic foundation for tawakkul that we'll be exploring tonight is actually one of the verses where Allah explicitly expresses His love for the mutawakkilin. It's Surah Al Imran, which is Surah number 3, verse 159. He says, "Thus it is due to mercy from Allah that you deal with them gently, and had you been rough, hard-hearted, they would certainly have dispersed around you. Pardon them, therefore, and ask pardon for them, and take counsel with them in the affair. So when you have decided, then place your trust in Allah, and surely Allah loves those who trust, the mutawakkilin." Please recite the salawat. Now I have to paint some context around this verse. This verse was revealed to the Prophet of Islam after the battle of Uhud. It was specifically revealed to the Prophet of Allah after he was betrayed at the battle of Uhud. For those of us who are not familiar with the battle of Uhud, the battle of Uhud is the second battle in the history of Islam. In the first battle, which was the battle of Badr, the Muslimin defeated the Mushrikeen. They didn't take too kindly to that, so they got their armies together and came to attack the Prophet at the battle of Uhud. Those of you who have been for Hajj or have been for Umrah and have visited the blessed city of Medina al-Munawwara, you perhaps would have visited a mountain, the mountain of Uhud, where Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, is buried. Hamza was one of the most staunch supporters of Rasulullah. He was martyred in the battle of Uhud. Before Imam al-Hussein became known with the title of Sayyid al-Shuhada, it was Hamza who was known as Sayyid al-Shuhada, which is the master of the martyrs. Now in that battle, because it was taking place on a mountain, the Prophet realized in his strategy in looking at the Mushrikeen army, he realized that if we go head first at the enemy, there is a possibility that the enemy can go around the mountain and surprise attack them from the back. So he placed archers on the mountain to prevent that from happening. What happened is after the martyrdom of Hamza, it seemed that the Muslim army really gained energy and went right full force towards the army of the Mushrikeen. And in doing so, they were on the verge of victory. And when they were on the verge of victory, the subject of war booty came up. Greed took over. And the archers who were standing on the mountain got greedy. And so what they did was, they thought victory was at hand. So they left their position on the mountain. And when they left their position on the mountain, a horse battalion, led by Khalid bin Walid, came around the mountain, attacked the Muslimin from the back, exactly as the Prophet had envisioned, and snatched defeat from the victory, victory from the jaws of defeat. So cliche. Point is, they were victorious. And in those moments, there was fake news that was going around on the battlefield, that the Prophet had been killed. And as a result, the Muslimin began to abandon the battlefield, leaving the Prophet. The Prophet was left alone. It was only the Prophet, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and one other companion. His name escapes me at the moment. But only the three of them were left to battle the mushrikeen. So that is the context. This is the context in which the Prophet was betrayed. It wasn't a small betrayal. It was a big betrayal. But imagine, what is Allah telling His Prophet? And again, Allah is talking to His Prophet. This is now after he's returned to Medina, and the people who abandoned him have now come to seek forgiveness. They're embarrassed. They're shameful. They feel guilty. And Allah advises the Prophet. What does He tell them? He says, because it is due from the mercy of Allah, deal with them gently. Don't be harsh with them. And had you been rough and hard-hearted, they will disperse away from you. Forgive them, but not only forgive them. Pray for their forgiveness. Sit down and talk to them. Consult with them in the matters going forward. Make a decision, and once you've made a decision, then have tawakkul on Allah. Now, this is the apparent meaning of the verse. What I would like to do with this verse is I would like to take a reflection of this verse and turn the verse back on ourselves. Turn the verse back on ourselves. How? For the times we betray ourselves. For the times we fall into problems, for the times we commit sin, for the times we make mistakes, and all of those. Turn the verse back on ourselves. It's interesting, the concept of tawakkul. For me, the concept of tawakkul growing up was always about when things were happening to me. When difficulty came towards me and I was facing difficulty, it was always, have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Each and every difficulty, that was the standard line. Have faith in God. Right? But when I messed up, or when I did something, there was no issue of faith in God. It was have faith in the punishment, because it was coming. And in a time when I was growing up, so cliche, my young people, I'm sorry, but I can't help it. In a time when I was growing up, that punishment many times came in the form of a slipper. To the time I got very intimately associated with the ridges on the slipper. You understand? So that I had to have trust in the punishment. But now imagine, when we find ourselves in a situation where we have betrayed ourselves, it doesn't necessarily even have to be sin. It can be bad decisions. It could be toxic cycles. It could be relationships that we're not getting right. It could be any number of things where we betray our true values. That is betrayal, right? So now, as we reflect the verse back on ourselves and our psyches, we now look at our inner Uhud, the battlefield of Uhud that exists within our souls and within our being. The truth is, my beloved souls, we all have a battle of Uhud happening inside of us. We've all had moments where we have betrayed ourselves, betrayed our higher selves. The promises to ourselves that we've broken, the standards we've set for ourselves, but not able to reach or abandoned. The person we were meant to be versus the person we sometimes are. The spiritual practices that we've neglected, the relationships we've damaged through our own choices, the times we've chosen the easy path when we knew what the right path was. Please recite a salawat. And what is the tendency? What is our tendency? The harsh inner voice. That harsh inner voice. That guilt and that shame. Why did you do that? How could you mess up again? You'll never change.